Hello, dear friend, and welcome to the amazing Sleep Story Tales. I'm so glad you're here with us today. Before we begin our journey into the gardens of the Shire and the brave heart of Samwise Gamgee, I'd love to take just a moment to connect with you wherever you are right now. How was your day today? Was it filled with challenges that left you feeling a bit worn out? Or perhaps it was one of those ordinary days that somehow still managed to drain your energy by the time evening arrived. Whatever kind of day you've had, you're here now, and that's what matters. You've made it to this quiet moment, this space that's just for you. Where are you listening from right now? Are you tucked under your covers in a cozy bedroom, perhaps with the lights dimmed low and the world outside your window slowly settling into darkness? Or maybe you're on a couch, wrapped in your favorite blanket, finally allowing yourself to unwind after a long day. Some of you might even be listening while traveling in a hotel room far from home, seeking the comfort of a familiar voice and a soothing story to help you drift off in an unfamiliar place. Wherever you are, whatever brought you here tonight, I want you to know that this time is yours. For the next little while, you don't need to think about tomorrow's responsibilities or yesterday's worries. You don't need to be anywhere else or do anything else. You're exactly where you need to be. Take a deep breath with me, if you'd like. Breathe in slowly through your nose. Hold it for just a moment, and then let it out gently through your mouth. Feel your shoulders drop. Feel the tension beginning to melt away from your body. You're safe here, you're comfortable, and you're ready to let go of the day. Tonight, we're going to journey together back to Middle-earth, to the green and pleasant Shire, and we're going to follow the story of a remarkable hobbit named Samwise Gamgee. Now, you might know Sam as Frodo's loyal companion, the gardener who carried his master up Mount Doom when all seemed lost. But tonight, we're going to discover Sam's complete story, from his simple beginnings on Bagshot Row to his peaceful ending in the blessed realm beyond the sea. Sam's tale is one of loyalty, courage, and the extraordinary power of ordinary folk. It's a story that reminds us that we don't need to be the strongest or the smartest to make a difference. Sometimes all it takes is a faithful heart and the determination to keep going, one step at a time. You don't need to stay awake for the whole story. In fact, I hope you don't. This story is here to carry you gently into sleep, like a leaf floating downstream on a quiet river. If you drift off after 5 minutes or 50, that's perfectly wonderful. The story will be here waiting for you tomorrow night, or the next night, or whenever you need it again. So go ahead and settle in a little deeper. Adjust your pillow just the way you like it. Pull your blanket a bit closer. Close your eyes if you haven't already, or let them gently rest half closed if that feels more comfortable. Let your breathing become slow and natural, like waves lapping softly against a peaceful shore. Before we begin, I want to thank you for choosing the amazing Sleep Story Tales. It means the world to me that you've invited me into this quiet, personal moment of your day. If you enjoy today's story, I'd love for you to subscribe to our channel and join our growing community of dreamers and story lovers. We have so many more tales to share with you, each one crafted with care to help you find the rest and peace you deserve. And now, let's begin. Let's travel together to a small hobbit hole on Bagshot Row, where there lived a family of gardeners. and among them was a young hobbit named Sam, whose simple hands would one day help save the world. Are you ready? Then let us begin our tale of Samwise Gamgee, the loyal companion, the brave gardener, and the truest friend Middle-earth had ever known. Breathe easily, relax completely, and let the story begin. In a small hobbit hole on Bagshot Row, at the bottom of the hill in Hobbiton, there lived a family called Gamgee. They were not wealthy or particularly notable hobbits, but they were honest, hard-working folk who took pride in their craft. The Gamgees were gardeners, and for generations they had tended the gardens of the more prosperous hobbits in the area. In the spring of the year 2980 of the Third Age, a son was born to Hamfast Gamgee and his wife Bel Goodchild. They named him Samwise, though he would be called Sam by all who knew him. He was the fourth of their 6 children, a sturdy little hobbit lad with a round, honest face and a sensible disposition that showed itself even in his earliest years. Sam's father, known to everyone as the Gaffer, was the chief gardener at Bag End, the finest hobbit hole in all of Hobbiton. Bag End belonged to Bilbo Baggins, the famous adventurer who had traveled to the Lonely Mountain and back. Though by the time Sam was born, Bilbo had long since settled into a comfortable and respectable middle age. The Gaffer took his work seriously, maintaining the gardens with the kind of devotion that others might reserve for treasures of gold or silver. To him, a well-kept lawn was worth more than jewels, and a properly pruned rosebush was a source of genuine pride. From the time Sam could walk, he followed his father around the gardens of Bag End. The old Gaffer would point out different plants, explaining which ones needed shade and which loved the sun, how to tell when the soil was too wet or too dry, and the proper way to trim a hedge so it would grow thick and healthy. Sam absorbed these lessons like the earth absorbed water, storing them away in his practical mind. But Sam learned more than gardening at Bag End. Sometimes, when his work was done, Mr. Bilbo would call him inside for a cup of tea, or to help carry books from one room to another. During these visits, Sam discovered a whole world beyond the Shire, a world that existed in stories and songs. Mr. Bilbo would tell tales of his adventure, of dragons and elves, of mountains and treasures, and of creatures both terrible and wonderful. Sam would listen with wide eyes, hardly daring to breathe, lest he interrupt the flow of the story. It was during these sessions that Sam developed his deep love for the elves. Though he had never seen one, Mr. Bilbo spoke of them with such reverence and affection that Sam came to think of them as the most beautiful and noble beings imaginable. He dreamed of one day seeing elves himself, though it seemed an impossible dream for a simple gardener's son. Sam also learned his letters from Mr. Bilbo, though his education was practical rather than scholarly. He could read well enough to understand a written instruction or enjoy a simple story, and he could write clearly when needed. But he never developed the love of books and learning that characterized hobbits like Bilbo or Frodo. Sam's intelligence was of a different sort, practical, loyal, and grounded in the real world of growing things and honest work. As Sam grew older, he gradually took over more and more of his father's duties at Bag End. The Gaffer was getting on in years, and his joints weren't what they used to be. Sam proved himself a worthy successor, with hands that seemed to know instinctively what each plant needed. Under his care, the gardens of Bag End flourished as never before. The grass was always perfectly trimmed. The flower beds exploded with color in their seasons, and even the vegetables in the kitchen garden seemed to grow larger and tastier than anywhere else in the Shire. By the time Sam was in his late 30s, he had become the master gardener of Bag End in all but name, though the gaffer still liked to supervise and offer advice. Sam had also developed a close relationship with Mr. Frodo, who had inherited Bag End from Bilbo years before. Frodo was different from other hobbits, more thoughtful, more curious about the world beyond the Shire, and kinder than most folk Sam had known. Where others might treat a gardener as a mere servant, Frodo spoke to Sam as a friend, asking his opinion on matters and sharing thoughts and stories. Sam's life was simple but content. He had his work, which he loved. He had his family on Bagshot Row, where his mother still cooked the finest meals, and his siblings came and went with news and gossip. And he had begun to notice Rose Cotton, the pretty daughter of Farmer Cotton, who lived in Bywater. Rosie had golden hair and a bright smile, and when she laughed, Sam felt his heart do curious things in his chest. He was too shy to speak much to her, but he thought about her often as he worked in the garden, imagining a future where he might have a home of his own with Rosie at his side. It was a peaceful life, the kind of life that most hobbits treasured above all else. Sam expected it would continue in much the same way for years to come. He would tend his gardens, perhaps eventually marry Rosie, raise a family of his own, and in time pass on his knowledge to his own children, just as the gaffer had passed it to him. But fate, as it turned out, had very different plans for Samwise Gamgee. Everything changed one spring evening when Sam was cutting the grass beneath Mr. Frodo's window at Bag End. He wasn't trying to eavesdrop, not really, but he couldn't help hearing voices inside. One was Mr. Frodo's, and the other was the deep, gravelly voice of Gandalf the Wizard, who had arrived unexpectedly that afternoon. What Sam heard froze him in place, his shears forgotten in his hands. They were talking about Mr. Bilbo's old ring, the magic ring that could make the wearer invisible. But it wasn't just a magic ring, Gandalf was saying. It was something far more dangerous, the one ring of power forged by the Dark Lord Sauron himself. And now Sauron was searching for it, sending his servants to the Shire. Sam's practical mind reeled at the impossibility of it all. Dark Lords and rings of power belonged in the stories Mr. Bilbo told, not in real life, not in the peaceful Shire, but there was no mistaking the gravity in Gandalf's voice or the fear in Mr. Frodo's responses. Before Sam quite knew what was happening, Gandalf had discovered him listening at the window. The wizard yanked him inside, demanding to know how much he had heard. Sam stammered out the truth. He had heard it all, every word about the ring and the danger and the Black Riders who were searching for it. Gandalf's eyes were fierce, and for a moment Sam thought he might be turned into something unnatural. But then Gandalf's expression softened, and he exchanged a long look with Frodo. "Well, Mr. Gamgee," the wizard said finally, "it seems you know too much. There's only one thing to do. You must go with Mr. Frodo and keep him out of trouble." And just like that, Sam's quiet life was over. Mr. Frodo was leaving the Shire, taking the ring far away to keep the hobbits safe, and Sam was going with him. There was no question of refusing. Mr. Frodo needed him, and that was all that mattered. Besides, a part of Sam, the part that had listened to Mr. Bilbo's stories and dreamed of seeing elves, thrilled at the prospect of adventure, even as the more sensible part of him quailed at the danger. The preparations took several months. Mr. Frodo sold Bag End to the Sackville Bagginses and made it appear that he was simply moving to a new home in Buckland. Sam continued his gardening duties, though his mind was often elsewhere, thinking about the journey ahead. He said nothing to his family about the real nature of their departure, only that he was going with Mr. Frodo to help him settle into his new home. On the day they left, Sam said goodbye to his father, to his mother and siblings, and to the garden he had tended for so many years. He looked at the green grass and the carefully pruned hedges, at the roses just beginning to bloom, and he wondered if he would ever see them again. The gaffer grumbled about young folk going off on foolish journeys, but there was worry in his eyes, as if he sensed that this was no ordinary trip. Sam didn't get a chance to say goodbye to Rosie Cotton. He had wanted to, had thought about walking to Bywater to see her one last time, but he couldn't find the courage. What would he say? He couldn't tell her the truth, and any lie would stick in his throat. So he left without a word, carrying the memory of her smile with him as a treasure more precious than any in Bag End. The journey began simply enough, just Mr. Frodo, Sam, and two of Mr. Frodo's younger cousins, Merry and Pippin, walking through the familiar lanes of the Shire. But it didn't stay simple for long. The Black Riders found them, terrible, shadowy figures on dark horses who filled Sam with a fear unlike anything he had ever known. These were creatures from nightmare, neither living nor dead, and they were hunting Mr. Frodo with relentless determination. Sam discovered reserves of courage he never knew he possessed. When danger threatened, he didn't run or hide. He stood his ground, ready to fight with nothing more than pots and pans, if necessary. At the inn in Bree, he stayed awake, watching over Mr. Frodo when others might have slept. In the wilderness beyond, when they were guided by the strange ranger called Strider, Sam remained vigilant, distrustful of this rough-looking man until he proved himself a true friend. It was in the wilderness that Sam finally saw his first elves. They met Glorfindel, an elf lord of great power and beauty, who set Mr. Frodo on his white horse and sent him racing toward Rivendell ahead of the Black Riders. Sam ran behind, his sturdy legs carrying him faster than he had ever run before, driven by fear for his master and friend. When they reached Rivendell at last, and Mr. Frodo was healed of his terrible wound, Sam found himself in a place beyond his wildest dreams. The last homely house was filled with elves, beautiful and wise, and their singing in the evening made his heart ache with a longing he couldn't name. He spent his days exploring the gardens of Rivendell, which were far grander than anything in the Shire, and his evenings listening to the elves sing. He also reunited with Mr. Bilbo, who had aged greatly since leaving the Shire. Sam was glad to see the old hobbit again, though it saddened him to see how time had finally caught up with Bilbo. They talked of the Shire and the garden at Bag End, and Bilbo gave Sam advice about taking care of Frodo on the journey ahead. For there was to be a journey ahead, and a terrible one. At the Great Council, Sam learned that the ring must be destroyed, and Mr. Frodo had volunteered to take it to Mount Doom in the heart of Mordor. Sam's heart sank when he heard this. Mordor was the realm of the enemy, a place of darkness and horror. How could they possibly survive such a journey? But when the Fellowship was chosen to accompany Frodo, Sam was included without question. He had appointed himself Frodo's protector and companion, and nothing would separate them. "If you don't come back, sir, then I shan't. That's certain," he had told Frodo, and he meant it with every fiber of his being. The journey with the Fellowship tested Sam in ways he had never imagined. They trudged through snow on the mountain of Caradhras, where Sam used his practical skills to help prepare meals and keep spirits up even in the bitter cold. When they entered the darkness of Moria, Sam felt the weight of the mountain above them, the oppressive sense of ancient evil lurking in the depths. In Moria, they lost Gandalf. Sam watched in horror as the wizard fell into the abyss with the Balrog, and he wept openly for the loss. Gandalf had dragged him into this adventure, had set him on this path, and Sam had grown to respect and trust the wizard. His loss seemed to herald the doom of them all. But they went on, emerging from Moria into the golden woods of Lothlorien. Here, Sam found a different kind of elf magic, gentler and more beautiful than anything in Rivendell. The Lady Galadriel was like no one Sam had ever imagined, ancient and powerful, beautiful and terrible at once. When she looked at him, Sam felt that she saw right through to his heart, understanding his simple desires and his deep loyalty. Galadriel gave him a gift when they left Lothlorien, a small box filled with earth from her garden and a seed from a malern tree. "In this box there is earth from my orchard," she told him, "and such blessing as Galadriel has still to bestow is upon it. It will not keep you on your road, nor defend you against any peril. But if you keep it and see your home again at last, then perhaps it may reward you. Though you should find all barren and laid waste, there will be few gardens in Middle-earth that will bloom like your garden if you sprinkle this earth there." Sam treasured this gift above all things, save only the elven rope they were given, which proved useful time and again. The lady's words gave him hope that he might one day return to the Shire, might see his garden and his home again, and perhaps even marry Rosie Cotton and plant that malern seed in his own yard. The Fellowship traveled down the great river, and Sam learned to manage the elven boats, though water still made him nervous. At night, when it was his watch, he sat thinking about the strangeness of his situation. A year ago, he had been a simple gardener who had never been farther than Frogmorton. Now he was traveling with elves and wizards and the heir of ancient kings, heading toward the darkest place in Middle-earth. Then came the breaking of the Fellowship at Parth Galen. Sam knew something was wrong when Mr. Frodo asked for time alone. Sam had seen how the ring was weighing on him, how Frodo had become more withdrawn and suspicious. When Frodo didn't return, Sam's heart told him what was happening. Mr. Frodo was going to slip away, to continue to Mordor alone, to spare the rest of them the danger. Sam wouldn't have it. He watched the boats, waiting, and sure enough, he saw Frodo trying to push off alone. Without a moment's hesitation, Sam ran into the water, even though he couldn't swim, and the river was deep and swift. "Coming, Mr. Frodo, coming," he cried, as the water closed over his head. Frodo had to turn back to save him, pulling him, spluttering, into the boat. "Oh, Sam," Frodo said, half laughing, half crying. "What would I do without you?" "You'll have to find out, Mr. Frodo," Sam replied, wringing out his sleeves. "Because I'm staying with you, and that's flat." And so they continued together, just the two of them, into the darkest lands of the East. The journey through the Emyn Muil and the Dead Marshes was the most miserable experience of Sam's life. The rocky wasteland seemed to go on forever, a maze of sharp stones and sheer drops where they wandered lost for days. Water ran short, and their food dwindled. Sam rationed the lembas carefully, making each wafer last as long as possible, though his stomach growled with hunger. Then they found Gollum, or rather, Gollum found them. The creature had been following them since Moria, and now he climbed down the cliff face toward them, intent on murder and theft. Sam was ready with his elven rope to defend Mr. Frodo, but Frodo showed mercy. He captured Gollum, but did not kill him. Instead, he made Gollum swear to guide them to Mordor. Sam distrusted Gollum from the start. The creature was twisted by the ring's power. His personality split between the wretched Smeagol, who had once been something like a hobbit, and the vicious Gollum, who desired only to reclaim his precious. Sam saw through Gollum's servile manner to the treachery beneath. "I don't trust him, not one bit," Sam told Frodo. But Frodo insisted they needed Gollum's guidance, and Sam had to accept it, though he watched the creature constantly, sleeping with one eye open when Gollum was on the move. Through the dead marshes they went, following Gollum through the treacherous paths where corpses from ancient battles lay preserved in the stagnant water. Sam saw the faces of dead warriors staring up through the murk, their eyes still somehow aware, and he shuddered at the horror of it. The marshes seemed to drain all hope and strength from them, leaving only exhaustion and despair. They reached the Black Gate of Mordor at last, that great portal through which Sauron's armies marched. But there was no way through for two small hobbits. The gate was too heavily guarded, the way impossible. Gollum promised he knew another way, a secret entrance, and though Sam protested, Frodo agreed to follow him. That other way led them south and west, through the land of Ithilien, where they were captured by Faramir, brother of Boromir. But Faramir proved to be a man of wisdom and nobility. Unlike his brother, he had no desire for the ring. When he learned what Frodo carried, he only marveled at the courage of hobbits and let them go with his blessing. Sam spoke up boldly before Faramir, defending Mr. Frodo and explaining their quest. He saw in Faramir's eyes a respect for their mission, and he was glad that not all men were consumed by the desire for power. But Gollum was leading them into a trap. Sam didn't understand this fully until they reached the pass of Cirith Ungol, and Gollum led them into the lair of Shelob, the great spider that dwelt there. Shelob was a creature of nightmare, vast and bloated with evil, older than Sauron himself. She attacked Frodo while Sam was separated from him, wrapping him in webs and stinging him with her poison. Sam thought Frodo was dead. He cradled his master's body and wept, his heart breaking with grief and guilt. He should have been there. He should have stopped this. But weeping wouldn't bring Frodo back or complete the quest. Sam realized that he had to take the ring and continue the mission. With trembling hands, he took the ring from around Frodo's neck and put it on the chain around his own. The ring whispered to him immediately, showing him visions of power. He could use the ring, it suggested, to become Samwise, the strong master of gardens that would span all of Middle-earth, commanding all growing things. But Sam saw through the illusion. He was a simple hobbit, and these fantasies of power were ridiculous. He needed the ring only to complete the quest, nothing more. Then came orcs, and Sam hid as they discovered Frodo's body. To his shock and joy, he heard them talking. Frodo wasn't dead, only paralyzed by Shelob's venom. The orcs carried him away to their tower, and Sam followed in despair and determination. He had the ring, but Frodo was alive and prisoner. What should he do? The answer was obvious to Sam. He couldn't leave Frodo, not while there was breath in his body. He would rescue him somehow, or die trying. Rescuing Frodo from the Tower of Cirith Ungol was the bravest thing Sam had ever done. He used the ring to become invisible, and the Phial of Galadriel to drive back the shadows. He fought orcs with a fury born of desperation, and though he was terrified, he didn't let fear stop him. When orcs blocked his way, he became like a warrior of old, though he was just a gardener from the Shire. He found Frodo at last, stripped and tormented, lying in the darkness at the top of the tower. When Sam called his name, Frodo thought he was dreaming. "Sam," he whispered, "is it really you?" "It's me, Mr. Frodo," Sam said, his voice breaking. "You're Sam, come to take you home." He gave Frodo back the ring, and though part of him was relieved to be free of its weight, Frodo looked at him with sudden suspicion, demanding whether Sam had tried to steal it. The accusation hurt worse than any wound, but Sam understood. It was the ring talking, not his friend. He bore it without complaint and helped Frodo dress in orc armor so they could escape. They fled the tower and began the final leg of their journey, the long, terrible march across the plateau of Gorgoroth toward Mount Doom. The land was a wasteland of ash and stone, poisoned by Sauron's evil. The sky was dark with fumes, and the air was thick and foul. There was almost no water, and their food was running dangerously low. Sam rationed everything carefully, giving Frodo the larger share, though Frodo protested. "You need your strength more than I do, Mr. Frodo," Sam would say. "You're the one carrying the real burden." For the ring grew heavier. With every mile, they drew closer to Mount Doom, weighing on Frodo like a physical burden. They walked by day and by night, resting only when they had to, driven by the knowledge that Sauron's eye was searching for them. Frodo grew weaker and weaker, struggling under the ring's weight. Sam supported him, half carrying him when necessary, refusing to give up even when it seemed impossible to continue. When they were desperately thirsty, Sam used the last drops of water to wet Frodo's lips, keeping none for himself. When their food finally ran out, he smiled and said, "Well, we've come this far. No use turning back now for want of a sandwich." The plain seemed endless. Every step was an agony, every breath a struggle. Frodo fell repeatedly, and each time Sam helped him up, speaking encouragement even when he had none left for himself. "Come on, Mr. Frodo, just a bit further. I can't carry it for you, but I can carry you." And he did. When Frodo could no longer walk, Sam lifted him onto his back and carried him. staggering across the ashen plain toward the mountain of fire. Sam's legs trembled with exhaustion. His back screamed in pain, but he kept going. He thought of the Shire, of green fields and running water, of Rosie Cotton's smile, and he drew strength from those memories. The mountain loomed before them, and somehow, impossibly, they reached its slopes. The climb up Mount Doom was the final test. The mountain shook with tremors, and rivers of fire ran down its sides. The heat was tremendous, and the air was poison. Frodo crawled the last stretch, with Sam urging him forward, protecting him when Gollum attacked one final time, driven mad by his desire for the ring. They reached the Sammath, nor the cracks of Doom where the ring had been forged. And there, at the last moment, Frodo failed. The ring had complete hold of him, and he couldn't destroy it. He put it on his finger and claimed it for his own. Sam watched in horror as his friend vanished, betrayed by the burden he had carried so far. But then Gollum appeared, mad with desire, and he attacked the invisible Frodo, biting off his finger to reclaim his precious. Dancing with joy, Gollum held the ring aloft and stepped too close to the edge. He fell, still clutching the ring, into the fires below. The ring was destroyed, Frodo was saved, and the quest was complete. The mountain began to erupt around them, and Sam gathered up Frodo, who was in shock from his wound and the loss of the ring. They fled from the chamber as it collapsed, stumbling down the mountainside as the world came apart around them. When they could go no further, they lay down on a rock outcropping and waited for the end, knowing they couldn't escape. But Sam didn't despair. He held Frodo's hand and spoke of the Shire, reminding Frodo of home, of green grass and running water, of peace and safety. "I'm glad to be with you, Samwise Gamgee," Frodo said, "here at the end of all things." "So am I, Mr. Frodo," Sam replied. "So am I." But it wasn't the end. The eagles came, sent by Gandalf, who had returned from death, and they rescued the hobbits from the mountain. Sam woke in Ithilien, clean and rested, with Frodo beside him. Gandalf was there, laughing with joy, and soon all their friends came, Merry and Pippin, Aragorn, Legolas, Gimli, and all the company. They had won. Against all odds, 2 small hobbits had destroyed the ring and defeated Sauron. The war was over, and they could go home. The journey home took months, with many stops and celebrations. Sam met kings and lords, saw great cities, and was honored as a hero of the age. But all he wanted was to return to the Shire, to see his family again, and to find out if Rosie Cotton still remembered him. When they finally reached the Shire, they found it changed for the worse. Ruffians had taken over, trees had been cut down, and the hobbits lived in fear. But the 4 travelers, Sam, Merry, and Pippin, had not journeyed to Mordor and back to allow their home to be ruined. They organized the hobbits and drove out the ruffians in the Battle of Bywater. After the scouring of the Shire, Sam set to work restoring what had been lost. He used Galadriel's gift, sprinkling the blessed earth throughout the Shire and planting the Malorn seed in the party field. The Shire bloomed as never before, with crops abundant and trees growing strong and tall. The Malorn grew into a magnificent tree, the only one of its kind west of the mountains, and it became a symbol of hope and renewal. And Sam finally found the courage to speak to Rosie Cotton. To his joy, she had waited for him, treasuring the memory of the shy gardener who had gone off to adventure. They were married in the spring of 1420, and Sam brought his bride to live at Bag End with Frodo. For several years, they lived happily together, Frodo writing his book about their adventure, Sam working in the garden and starting a family with Rosie. They had children. Laenor came first, named for the golden flowers of Lothlorien, and then Frodo, and then Rose, and more besides. Bag End rang with laughter and the sounds of children playing. But Frodo could not fully heal from his wounds. The burden of the ring had marked him permanently, and on the anniversary of his wounding on Weathertop, he would fall ill. Sam watched his friend with growing concern, knowing that Frodo was fading, that the Shire could no longer hold him. 2 years after their return, Frodo gave Bag End to Sam and said goodbye. He was sailing into the west with Gandalf and the elves to find healing in the Undying Lands. Sam rode with him to the Grey Havens, and there they parted, knowing they would not meet again in Middle-earth. "I tried to save the Shire, and it has been saved," Frodo told him, "but not for me. It must often be so, Sam. When things are in danger, someone has to give them up, lose them, so that others may keep them." Sam wept as the ship sailed away, but he also understood. Mr. Frodo had earned his rest, his peace, and Sam had his own life to live, a life that Frodo had helped make possible. Sam returned to the Shire and threw himself into living. He became mayor of the Shire, serving 7 consecutive terms. He and Rosie had 13 children in all, and Bag End was always full of life and love. He replanted the party tree with the Malern seed Galadriel had given him, and it grew into a wonder that visitors came from all over the Shire to see. Sam kept Frodo's book, adding his own chapters about the scouring of the Shire and the years after. He told his children stories of the quest of elves and wizards, of courage and friendship. He taught them about the importance of simple things, growing food, helping neighbors, keeping the land healthy and green. Years passed, and Sam's children grew and had children of their own. Rosie grew old beside him, her hair turning white, but her smile still as bright as ever. They lived a long and happy life together, filled with the everyday joys that Sam had always treasured. Good food, a warm fire, family gathered round, and the satisfaction of a job well done. When Rosie died at last, Sam was heartbroken. They had been married for over 60 years, and her loss left a hole in his life that nothing could fill. But he had his children and grandchildren to comfort him, and the garden still needed tending. Then, one day, when Sam was very old, his daughter Laenor brought him a message. A ship was waiting at the Grey Havens, a ship bound for the west, for Sam had borne the ring, if only briefly, and thus he was counted among the ring-bearers and granted the same grace as Frodo, to pass into the west and find peace in the blessed realm. Sam gave the red book to Laenor, kissed his children and grandchildren goodbye, and made his way to the Havens. He was 102 years old, full of years and wisdom, and ready at last for his final journey. The ship sailed at sunset, carrying the last of the ring-bearers away from Middle-earth. And we can imagine, if we wish, that when Sam reached the shores of the Undying Lands, Frodo was waiting for him there, young and whole again, ready to show his friend around his new home. What shall we say of Samwise Gamgee, called Sam? History remembers him as one of the great heroes of the Third Age, the faithful companion who carried Frodo up Mount Doom when all hope seemed lost. Songs were sung of his courage, and his name was honored alongside the great warriors and kings of that time. But Sam would have been embarrassed by such praise. He never thought of himself as a hero. He was just a gardener who loved his master and did what needed to be done. He never sought glory or reward. The honor of serving Frodo, of helping to save the Shire, was reward enough. Yet perhaps that is what made Sam truly great. His courage came not from a desire for fame, but from loyalty and love. His strength came not from physical power, but from a heart that refused to give up, even in the darkest places. His wisdom came not from books, but from understanding what truly mattered: friendship, home, simple pleasures, and doing one's duty. Sam represents something essential: the importance of ordinary folk in the great events of history. He showed that you don't need to be a wizard or a warrior, an elf or a king to change the world. Sometimes all it takes is a simple gardener with a loyal heart and the courage to keep going when others would give up. In the gardens Sam tended, in the children he raised, in the Shire he helped restore and protect. His legacy lived on. The Malorn tree in the party field grew tall and golden, dropping its leaves in winter that the children would gather and keep as treasures. The gardens of the Shire bloomed more beautifully than ever before, nourished by the blessed earth from Lothlorien. And in the stories that were told around fires on winter evenings, in the tales that parents shared with their children, Sam's courage and loyalty were remembered. He became a symbol of all that was good and true in the Shire, a reminder that greatness can be found in the humblest places, and that the smallest person can make the biggest difference. As you drift off to sleep, think of Sam in his garden at Bag End, working in the good earth, with the sun warm on his back and his children playing nearby. Think of him at peace after all his trials, content with his simple life and the love of his family. Think of him finally reunited with Frodo in the Blessed Realm, two friends together again after a long separation. The journey is over, the ring is destroyed, the Shire is safe, and Sam, faithful Sam, has earned his rest at last. May you rest as peacefully as he does, with the satisfaction of knowing you did your duty, loved well, and left the world a little better than you found it. Sleep well, dear friend. The garden will be there tomorrow, and the sun will rise again, as it always does, on a new day full of simple joys and quiet contentments. And that, perhaps, is the greatest gift of all. The end.